Hi there, Randy Green here, part 4 of Deconstruction of Belief Systems. Let us continue. I promised I wanted to talk a little bit more about the whole Joshua kind of thing. And at the same time also talking about an Egyptian goddess that is in Greek is called Sothis, and in Egypt or Egyptians called Sothis, or however that is pronounced. As you know, I don't speak Egyptian, even though I actually contemplated on doing studies at a university in Egyptology. It's drawing me because what did I bring with me, and what was a repetitive thing that was going on in my childhood as well. My grandmother went to Egypt and she came home with a scarab in a jewelry, piece of jewelry to me, and that sparked a lot of stuff to life in me, which literally gave me dreams of Egypt and all sorts of weird stuff. So Egypt is also something that is part of me. When I went to college, our Danish equivalent to your college, I wrote a history assignment in how the Egyptian gods as well as the political system in Egypt. So this is, again, I had dreams about it, then I investigated it and I looked into it. And I want to take a little bit, you can look up Sothis or Sothis, which is spelled Sothis or Sopdet. It's easy if you look up Sothis, the Greek version of it. You will see that she is she has got this 5-pointed star on her head, which is interesting. This is the sigil or the signature of the 5th root race. That is the pentagram, or the 5-pointed star, because the pentagram is a later invention. The original version of the symbol of the 5th root race you find on the head of Sothis. And she is technically, this is I just love this one. She is the Egyptian equivalent of Sirius, or the dog star Sirius. She is married to Osiris. So this is also important. But Osiris, or Sa, at that point, where she's one of the oldest goddesses in Egypt. You have to look at the oldest goddesses, not the later one. We don't care about Isis and her consort Osiris as he became to be, because these are the later kingdoms. These are the ones that were highly infused by whatever was going on in Sumeria, and that were taken over by the Medukians, and that changed the whole Levant and the whole Egyptian realm of gods, and they were merged and conflated into something else. So, and her offspring is Subdu, which is Venus. Sa, which is, I'm looking at Wikipedia here, you can look it up, is a god in ancient Egypt religion, representing a constellation that encompasses the stars in Orion and Lepus. Again, remember, the way we're looking at the constellations today are not necessarily how they've been looked upon all the time. Lepus is the hare or har, or a bunny, which is interesting. I know it's not this bunny, and a har is not hair, or whatever how you pronounce it. It's not the same. I'm just putting it in there so you can look it up and you understand what I'm talking about. As well as stars found in some neighboring modern constellations. And we always have this, that we have the 3 pyramids, and we have had people that have been thinking about in the 80s and 90s that these 3 periods, the Kiefer period and all of these, I can't remember the 2 others are called, in the Giza complex, that they were connected to the belt of Orion, which they very well could be. But we also have in the one of the largest periods, which has been explained as tombs for whatever gods or pharaohs that were there, and for me they are old gate systems. It's clear as day, because you go into that chamber, and from that chamber, which is made of granite, you can amplify the energies to such a way that you can build a direct stellar bridge from that chamber in the pyramid, which at that point had what I think these are one of the people that were thinking about the periods. I can't remember his name. One of the conspiracy theorists about the whole Egypt Giza complex being an ancient other dimensional site of information, which I can't remember who and whatever, because I studied and read so many things during my lifetime. But I go with that idea. And when I envision this kind of things, you have the queen chamber and you have the king chamber. The king chamber went to the Orion system, and these were run by the Assyrians. The Assyrians has nothing to do with the mythology of Isis and her consort Osiris that were chopped up to pieces by Set. That mythology is all Inanna stuff. Isis is Inanna in her Egyptian version. And now in the previous video, we talked about how these original root races can divide themselves through many different organic vessels, right? So this is that version of it, and that fits the whole underworld and the whole dark stuff. That is similar to the story of Inanna in Egyptian mythology setting. But when we talk about the Assyrians, these were the ones that were connected to Sar and the whole Orion system that is much, much larger than what we are looking at the sky. And he was the consort of Sothis that were the goddess of the Sirius star, the dog star. Okay, so this is how you got that one, the fifth root race. Sar is that type of Assyrians. When I look upon them, they are human looking, but they are humanoids at the time. And they are the ones that have now regressed into what we call some of the insectoid races. The Assyrians knew about what we call rebirth. And they know about the gate systems. They were the ones that were controlling the king chamber of one of the pyramids, the Kefir pyramid. And Sothis and the gate or the star to Sirius, the path to Sirius, were done through the queen's chamber. And this is where I laugh a little bit, because when you read the Bailey material, you have one of the ways you can choose after you're done with the whole schooling and the initiation, the 7 initiations within our planetary system. What you can choose after that, when you go into the hierarchy, you can choose the path to Sirius. That's the school where you can learn about this. It's explained in Cosmic Fire as well as in the race and the initiations. So when I kind of got the whole, okay, look into the path of Sirius, and we typically, because I had all of this male Assyrian stuff going on, which were, many of them were infused with Orion genetics and therefore had become something entirely else due to the military projects and all these kind of things, and taking down the old programs and working my way through this. The whole male overshadowing aspect of Sirius then kind of that's the distortion of it. So when we go back to, if you are going to do the path of Sirius and the way out, and we go back to Sothis or Sothis, she's also what we could call one of the ones that lead you from the underworld and into the bridge to the afterlife or the other dimension of reality. And to go to Sirius, you have to go through the Queen's Chamber. And the Queen's Chamber is feminine consciousness structure. It's all about order, balance, and harmony. And you have to have that. That is what is called a judge. And that is the original lawmaking. This is also why when you do the tarot cards, when you look at justice, Justitia, that's a female. When you look upon the whole Libra, that's also a female sign. Athena is female. Whenever you have goddesses that's about law and order, that's female energy. And that's the only, we have the breeder program, and we have the remnants of the original law and order in a completely screwed up version within the different female goddesses that represented law and order. So when you go through the Queen's Chamber in one of these pyramids to get out, you have to have the original female consciousness structure, which is what we could call one of the remnants of the last piece of female energy within the Sirius system. It's completely gone now, but these are one of the oldest female pathways out that is technically into the previous solar system. I'm just putting that information in there. And she is, which is difficult to find in the text material on Wikipedia, but I had a vision first, and I saw she was connected to the temple in Karnak. And I saw there in Karnak, we have these rows of rams, which was a picture my grandmother showed me, by the way. So I was pointed in that direction because she had been there. And rows of rams that are going up to the temple. And when you do that path, when you work through, what is a temple all about? A temple is a physical manifestation of other dimensional realities that are being lodged into our reality, either through organic life forms or through different material representations of whatever is going on in the other dimension. Whatever you have got going on in the Giza complex, you have a fourth dimensional version of it. What the temple in Karnak has a fourth dimensional version to it as well. So when you work through this row of rams up to the temple complex itself, which is where the priesthood of whatever was, so you have the Giza complex, that's all about the stellar gates, and you have the temple in Karnak that was all about the priesthood. And look this up on Wikipedia and get the historical accounts, the background information of that one, so you get that one completely nailed, which kingdom, which time period, similar to Sumeria, what was going on there, that is linked to a specific root race that had the copper-colored skin that were the reseeding of Mars, Pleiades, and Sirian Ace. Very, very, very important information that is similar to what we find in some of the Brahims and the chakra system and what is connected to that version of it. Combine this information and you begin to get the pieces of why Sirius and the Venusians and the Martians were working together on our planet. It's lodged into the seeding after Atlantis and what they were trying to accomplish. So when you get this whole Sothis and the Queen's Chamber, and that's the gate to Sirius, you don't go to Sirius through male consciousness structure, you go to Sirius through the female consciousness structure, which the Syrians that have remained from and are part of Sirius B have completely eradicated, but they have this tendency to use females within our systems as teachers, which is interesting. You know, there are two prominent ones, which is one part of the Kalantic, the other one I won't mention because she's still actively in duty, so I won't put fingers on that one, but typically choosing these females that have gone to Egypt for reasons and purposes, from where they have been lodged up with some of these Syrian B remnant energies or whatever's going on there, trying to find their way out, creating sub-races within the military projects and human prospects, having the symbol coding for these Syrian consciousness structures, which will then allow them to get the hell out of our solar system and get back to where they came from. And they're not talking about the current version of Sirius. They want to get back to when Sirius was a united system and had not been divided into Syrian A, B, and C. So that's a very, very long time ago. So just saying that this is part of that whole understanding, but they will never get out because they don't have the female genetics anymore. So this is also immensely interesting and just to be thrown in there to be considered and have a contemplation about. When you go up that path into the priesthood and the temple, the priests were the ones that were actively working on the behalf of the first seeding of the root races, which we call the gods. So in that one, they were the ones that were administering the energetic side, the esoteric side of reality, whereas the kings were the ones that were administering the exoteric, meaning the political side of things. So you got that built up as well. So that is, and then you had the military. So you had the king, you had the military, and you had the priesthoods, which again goes with the Trinity, always the Trinity in systems on our planet. When you once you get what Sothis actually is and what she represents, then when you work through down that path, I saw it in a vision. It was quite spectacular, actually. You walk down that. The whole understanding of the Queen's Chamber and the understanding of Sothis and what she represented, the type of DNA and what she led to, and the whole understanding of that, of course, came to me in a vision. And with that vision came genetic information that allowed me to open up a specific type of information system that allowed me to see these things. So this is also how I work, why I work with these things, why I dig around as I do. Sometimes I encounter code systems that are extremely unfortunate, and other times I dig gold, and this is where you get the positive side of it. I don't feel a need to share the 99% negative aspects of it, but I like to share the 1% good aspects of it. So, and walking down the aisle and then seeing this I've seen it in nature as well, and I've seen it in Australia. I do this bleed through of the other levels of our reality that's behind everything. It's quite common to me. But here it was in a vision, not out there in nature, which I see all the time, but this was in a vision. And I saw this while that the Temple of Karnak was on its highest level, and the priests were doing whatever they needed to do to keep the fourth dimension around the temple complex, which made it sacred. So you had to be purified before you went into the temple complex, and that's typically why only the priests and the maidens and the ones that were serving under the temple were a part of these complexes. They were living in cities around these complexes. They were tied to it, and they were purified, and they were rearranged, you can call it, by grace, to have the correct purity level, which allowed the priest to keep and maintain a fourth dimensional sphere within the temple complex, which made it sacred. And as you were walking in there, you walk through a gate system or path system. And the Isle of Rams is kind of that takes you from this world and into another world. You can also have the Sphinx, or they also have an Isle of Sphinxes that are also, that's the fifth dimension that gives you that access point into the fifth dimension. If you walk down the Isle of the Rams, you go into the fourth dimension. Walk down the Isle of the Sphinxes, you go into the fifth or the sixth dimension, all depending on how you want to interpret the level of the knowledge of the sphinxes and the energies they hold in the priesthoods that are connected to either the sphinxes or the rams. Again, different sections of the priesthoods that were functioning in ancient Egypt. This is completely information from my vision I'm giving you here. Nothing to do historical setting. I don't even know if they have this division of priesthood in Egypt, in Egyptology. So just understand the difference here. This is me talking from the vision and the information I got from the vision. So I'm in this vision and I'm looking around. I'm back in time. I'm there. I'm walking down the aisle. I'm understanding these things as I'm walking down the aisle. I'm seeing what I'm seeing because I'm carrying the energies of Sothis, which is part of the path to Sirius, which is part of the gate system that allows you to see these realities from where you're able to walk down the temple complex. Even though you're working the physical temple complex, you're also walking the other dimensional temple complex at the same time. This is why it's sacred. So you go into an altered state of awareness when you entered or used to enter into these temple complexes that were imbued with either the fourth or the fifth or the sixth dimension. And that when you then walked into the temple and you would encounter the priest and they would do whatever they were doing to ensure that you were pure, and the rituals had to be followed, and the different things had to be said, and the different magical things had to be created. So you were creating this kind of energetic portal that were always centered around the altar. And what we have left now are just the buildings. But this is important, understanding that these complexes were not meant for physical rituals as scientists believe. These were meant for other dimensional rituals where the observers of this understanding, the ones that had the keys, that had the knowledge, that had the invocations, that had the right DNA code, would experience a combining between heaven and earth within these temple complexes. This is a completely new way of talking about religion, and this is, from my perspective, the true understanding of why we had priesthoods, why we had maidens at the temple complexes, why we have all of these ancient cultures that are built up upon a lot of symbolic stuff that nobody really knows of. And what would you then encounter in this temple complex? Well, that would depend on the lineage and what you were to achieve or retrieve from your other dimensional contact with the original races behind that temple complex. So now you understand that part of things. And then I want to point in the direction of a memory I have of Joshua. We have the whole unfortunate, from my perspective, he never completed his mission. So even though it's in the Balaam material set that he did the transfiguration, I don't think so. I don't think he completed his mission here. And I don't think he went back to Mars and lived there happily ever after, because this is not part of my information system. On the contrary, I do believe the tomb was empty. But I also believe that that is where people make up really good stories, because this is something they don't understand. And Miriam did not have other dimensional sight, and she did not have the ability to scan the other dimensions, and she did not have the ability to look back and forth in time to see what had happened if she had gone over, and what was left of Joshua in the tomb. There is this cloth that was left. If she had gone over and done some kinetic reading, putting her hands on and reading the information of it and scanned throughout the dimension of what actually had happened, the story would probably been something entirely different. Because what I have a vision of is that a group of humans that were around, that were part of that project, I have visions of actually what Joshua and Miriam were capable of doing when we talk energy and other dimensional activation sequences. I have memories of that. Not that it is important. I'm a bystander. I'm looking at it. I'm not actively part of these memories, so they could be implanted, but they hold information for me that are important for my work. So it doesn't matter if it was there, if I was there, if I'm affiliated with it or not, it doesn't matter. These are pieces of information similar to the Sothis information, similar to the understanding of the temple complex, similar to the understanding of the Giza complex, and these things that piece together my own personal history and why I'm here and what I'm doing here. It's all about me, right? But this is me sharing what I remember, so you get pieces of the puzzle, so you can, if you have been at that time, you will have these levels of information imbued into your memory field somewhere that is part of your mental reconstruction process of your brain field. Similar to when I did the whole integration classes and the whole advanced classes and the whole future project human classes, I'm working through my heart field and sharing my experiences there. Context, always context. Where am I talking from? What's the purpose of what I'm sharing? So what I have a memory of is that Joshua gets hung in a tree. He bleeds to death. Did he get the nails through his hands? Not what I'm seeing. I'm seeing him having ropes around his wrist. I am seeing him being beaten so immensely severely up. And that's why I've always had that memory very early on, the complete beating up of him. And that's why when we went to when Mel Gibson did his Passion of Christ movie, that is in Aramaic. It is a fantastic movie. I don't know where he got the inspiration to do that movie, but it first and foremost it was in Aramaic. Not one English word was spoken. We can always discuss whether or not he was inspired to do that movie. And we're seeing the character Jesus and how he gets so severely beaten up. And from the moment I went to a movie center and saw the movie, from the moment it began and they spoke the Aramaic language and the setting of it, I was drawn back in time and I cried from the beginning to the end of that movie. And I don't know if it's 2 hours or 3 hours. My t-shirt was wet of tears. It was an enormously emotional movie for me, and I probably can't watch it again, but at that time it had a profound effect on me because that was literally, this is what I remember. This is what I've seen. This is what's in me, that understanding that he was beaten to death and he bled to death, hanging on that tree for 12 hours because he had been beaten up so severely that he died of internal hemorrhage, he died of the bruises, he died of the bashing in of his head, he died from the whipping, and this is immensely well portrayed by Mel Gibson's version of it, and it is a brutal movie. It's a completely brutal movie. If you can't take severe beating, don't watch it because it's raw and it's direct, and for me it had a huge impact. But when did I watch it? 20, 30 years ago? I can't remember, but at the time it was a profound movie because it really correlated to the memories I had. So even though that this completely beaten up, completely beaten up human, which is what I remember as something extremely horrible. You're standing there, I have memory of it, you're standing there, you can't do a damn thing, you've got Roman soldiers all over the place, and you can't reach the one that you know is there to do a specific type of job, and he's in that pain and agony. He's looking at you. He knows these are his followers. We can't do a damn thing because he is in this process. He knows this is how it's going to go. This is what he's up against. These are the Baals. These are the scavengers, the overlords. They are brutal. They have no mercy. They have no emotions. They have absolutely nothing. That's why they're doing what they're doing. And the whole, you can't interfere with this. This is what I remember as the worst thing about having this memory, is that you're standing there, you can't do a damn thing. I could have thrown myself into it. I could have tried to do something, but what could I do? I was a woman. What the fuck could I do? I even have a drawing of myself of how I looked at the time. I made a drawing of myself from a vision of how I looked. I got that one. So that is also interesting. The clothing, how it felt on my skin. It's very, very vivid. So I am a little bit leaning towards I might have been there somehow, somewhere, as all of us that are part of this. Whenever we have an affiliation with the whole Joshua character, whether it's true or not, doesn't matter. But it's there, it's part of our memory fields. And then he died and he was taken down. And the group around him, which included Miriam, I remember I'm having this vision where they are standing at the borders to go to Egypt. And they are literally trying to get to the Assyrians, which would then revive Jesus or Joshua. So this is what I have got. No transfiguration, no divinity, no divine interference, yes, there was the Syrian overshadowing, but he pulled out the moment Joshua got taken by the scavengers. He pulled out to protect himself. We can always discuss whether that was good or bad. And then there was just the Martian left that took the beating. The warrior that was treated as a warrior and that was beaten to death following the codes of the lizards and the draconian system. So that is something completely else. And that's why it was so horrible and so strong and so severe, because this is a warrior's death. And then also to ensure that he would be reborn within our system. So the whole goal of that one, as I remember and recall it, and it's a fitting story to put here on Pentecost, and then we can put it to the grave literally and not talk about it ever again. The group that were around Joshua, they took his body and they're trying to get to Egypt to use the king's chamber to transfer him to what we understand as the older races of the Syrians that knew how to do the regenesis, that means the rebirth, from where he would rise back up, and then take him out from the Assyrian system and travel and get him back to Mars, where he would continue whatever he needed to continue, and then the whole mission would be reassessed and figure out, okay, what to do. We kind of fucked this one up. What do we do now? The Baals were stronger than we anticipated. And to be interesting enough, I'm against this. This is Miriam that is pushing for that one. She's pushing to take his corpse to the Assyrians and do the revivification. And I'm completely against it, for reasons and purposes which I will not go into here, but you kind of should already have got the idea that you can't trust whoever comes from the Orion system, because they are literally the main architects, the pontifexes behind the whole taking over of Atlantis and military projects and whatever. They are, alongside with the fallen Syrians, the bad guys in this story, really. So what was the point to hand them over a physical vessel that had the symbol, the sigil of the great Syrian that was supposed to incarnate in a later cycle to undo what went wrong in the Atlantean projects? I'm just saying. So I'll leave it at that, just so you kind of, there's a lot of very important information here, which when you read the Bailey material, have this in mind and not what she's trying to paint out, because she was a devout Christian, so she was not ready for the alien agenda, other dimensional, other racial stuff. The Tibetan is alluding to it, but it's not clearly there. It's there, but it's cloaked. You have to search for it. So when we talk about the Assyrians and that race and these memories and these kind of things and what was going on there, and Sothis as this Egyptian goddess, it is important to understand that even though she does have offspring that is Venus, for me, whenever that happens, it is a representation of how humans were thinking. The interesting thing about Subdu, which is Venus, that god or no, let me put it the other way. So Sothis, that's how it's put. Sothis later got conflated with the whole concept of dog star, as well as Anubis, that is a male type of underworld creature. And from that one, she was turned into what we see as a negative figure that would be similar to the concept of Astartes, similar to the concept of these female goddesses that are then being conflated with negative dark entities, from where they become underworld weird creatures. And she, in that tamasic or destructive, inverted, similar to Kali and all of the other goddesses that always have this dark side to them that's linked to the underworld, is part of what has been done to these type of DNA, which is then bleeding through the astral plane and giving us the results of the direct dark side manipulation of the original female consciousness structure of our planet to keep it bound in the underworld and what was done there. So this is also important for those of you who have heard me talk about the black wolves. This is where that one comes from, the complete opposite of the female DNA of Sirius that were then merged with Anubis, merged with the priesthood of Anubis, merged with the maidens of Anubis, and merged with whatever followed that one later on, taken over by Inanna and some of her projects that led to what we understand as the breeding aspect of the female body. I'm just making a very quick shortcut here. Again, so you kind of understand what Sothis in her original aspect were self-procreating. That means that she could spawn life out of her own body. And this is what the original root races did. It's symbolically represented in the Blavatsky material, where she talks about that they were budding or taking out their side or whatever they were doing, which is not what it was. Let us get it back into scientific context and say DNA replication. Right, that was seeded into our system in the second round using the reptoid genetics, the fifth cycle type of genetics that allow for replication, whether it was in a replicate or it was in a clone or it was in a lower aspect of themselves in an organic vessel, replicating their template, the code sheets, and then creating an organic vessel using alien technology. Let's just put it into the correct frame of reference. Nothing divine there. So with this one, I think I've actually told out what I wanted to share with you, which you can use as a little bit of background information, again, expanding your consciousness structure into some very important ways of working with your memory fields, which are the ones that comes to life once you're done with altering the astral levels of your 7-layered chakra system, and you have contracted it into 5 main chakras, from where you begin to work with the new levels of the etheric fields that are the code sheets that are connected to the mental fields, of which there are 4, and you are to create the 5th version of that one, which is the signature code sheet of the Aryan races. So you're literally working your way through the root races when you're working your way through the chakra system, which is why it was made for as part of the reseeding after Atlantis and the fall of Atlantis, of which we have the Brahims and we have the Shivas and we have the, whether it is Shakti or it's Vishnu, all depending on which version of the Hindu Trinity we are talking about. There's always this whole kind of, you have the father, mother, son version of it, which Bailey works with a lot, where our solar system is technically, the souls are the son aspect, the son and daughter aspect, whereas the mother is the previous solar system, and what will come after this one is the father solar system. But I don't like this terminology because it is too much infused with normal human thinking. So let us just talk about, as I talk about in the Souls of Humanity and the way I'm working with it, very advanced races that evolve through different cycles, are part of different reality fields and different systems from where they develop their consciousness structure using different organic forms, highly infused with very, very advanced consciousness technology that are connected to the reality field itself, but are maintained and controlled through the use of consciousness, through the use of expansion of radiation or vibrational fields, through the understanding of how to work with energy in the correct manner to manifest things, to decompose things, to destroy things, to create things, to build an energy, to destroy what you have built, but because your consciousness will always be connected to whatever you have created. And that is what is to be seen in the triangle between activity, Raja, destruction, and order and balance, which is the synthesis of creation and decreation, which should lead to a higher level of synergy, which should lead to a higher consciousness structure that allows you to work more complex and within complex energy systems that allows you to expand your awareness throughout the different layers of the reality, which is always multidimensional. So when we talk about multidimensional settings, our planet used to have 9 dimensions. It now only has 5, of which the 4th and the 5th are completely artificial, because the original 4th and 5th dimension is long gone due to what I have just explained here, the hijacking and the taking over of our system and whatever races that were created here that slowly but surely dismantled the original construction, the original technologies, which I explain in the Source of Humanity. The chakra systems were altered into control systems. The original zodiac and the original gate systems and the original racial DNA from the other planets were transformed into this low-level enslavement template under the astrological signs that has very little to do with the original zodiacal or 12 lineage DNA composition we technically all hold in our template. Thank you.